So good morning. I'm going to be opening the creator track. As she presented me, I'm Emilie Joly. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Apelab, but my background is as an interaction designer. I've been working with immersive technologies for about 10 years now, and my focus has been interactive storytelling, mixing with immersive technology, and my team and I have also created a series of tools for visual programming tools basically, so that anyone who does not know how to code can create VR and AR content. And today I'm going to be speaking about integrating VR and AR creation into the classroom, which is something that my team is very passionate about, and we've been working on it for about a year now. So the way we teach today is we're still using a lot of old methods to teach. And with spatial computing, right now we have the opportunity to kind of blow that up and make learning a lot more creative, a lot more interactive, a lot more intuitive, and change basically the way we learn in classes. And try to avoid this, basically. So clicker isn't working, but maybe I have to point over there. Thank you. So I'm just going to go over some of the, it's just some examples of how AR and VR is implemented into classes right now. So there's different categories. I'm just going to give you a few examples. So virtual classroom, this is a platform called Engage, which is used a lot. And basically, when you're in a virtual classroom, you have kids and teachers connected. They can be anywhere around the world, and it's basically like a hub for teaching in virtual. So you can have the teacher talking with kids. It's great for doing classes where there can be a class in Africa and a class in China and a class in the US, and they can kind of work together on a specific topic. Another category is, no, that way. One more that way. Thank you. Another one is like what I call virtual simulation. So this is a virtual chemistry lab. It's kind of a game. It's made by a company called Shell Games. They're very well known for mixing games and education together. And there's other examples of those, like Titanic VR or the Apollo experiences. And I call these virtual simulations. It's basically kids will go in there for maybe an hour. Like when I was a kid at school, we would watch a documentary for an hour. So this is kind of similar. It's just a standalone experience that kids are going to do. You want to help me with this? Thank you. No problem. This one's really cool. Try it out. It's called HoloLab Champions. It's basically a chemistry lab simulator, but there's a lot of them. And the way the teachers use them now in class, they would just kind of take 1 hour out of their time and have that. You can go to the next slide if you can. Thank you. And the part that I'm most interested in is integrating creation into classes. And this is the tool that we're building, and I'll talk a little bit about it later, and why we would, integrate VR and AR creation into classes and what that brings also to the pedagogy. So this is Grace. She's a 13-year-old girl who participated into one of our programs this summer. And she kind of came to me after the program. It was about 4 to 5 days, and I'll go through what we did on that program. And she was kind of crying. I wasn't sure what was going on, because I'm not an educator as a background, so if a kid comes to me, I'm not sure. I'm not always sure what to do, but I'm learning now. But she was actually super happy. She was really excited, and she was super proud because she managed to create a virtual reality experience all by herself, and she didn't believe that she would be able to do that herself, right? So I think that's kind of what we want when kids are learning. We want them to feel like that all the time. That would be great. And this is a little video of the apps that her team and some of the other teams created. It was teams of 2. And you can see kind of like in a couple of days the level of what they were able to build from scratch. So from the assets to the interactivity and the story.
Hello, my name is Enter, and I am the spirit of excitement.
This is an article that I read last week. I thought it would be interesting to put it out there. Basically, some of the key points that they're speaking about is that today in school, the kids are, quite able to do grammar and, create sentences, and they're able to speak, but they're not really good at telling stories anymore. And in that article, they speak about how storytelling is extremely important for pedagogy, and there's a lot of benefits in being able to articulate a storyline or, even a game or an experience. And some of the benefits of AR/VR creation, in my mind, are I'm going to be doing this a lot, I'm sorry. It really improves communication skills, because when you're actually building something, you have an idea in your mind and you actually have to concretize it and have other people try it, so that helps you with that. It teaches you how to make arguments as well, because you have to tell a story, or you have a topic you want to speak about, and you have to convince the other people or the other person that you're right. And the last part is learning by explaining, and that's kind of known to be one of the best ways to learn anything. As soon as you have to explain to someone else a topic, then you learn it even more, and that's really one of the things that we're focusing on. And during the workshop that we created, I'm going to go through the steps that we did with the kids. The subject was sustainable agriculture for the virtual reality part, and when we told them the subject, they kind of made a face, like, we went to do a virtual reality camp and we're going to talk about sustainable agriculture. The kids were kind of like, what is this? Not so excited at the beginning, but when they started to do research around the topic and then figuring out what they wanted to say or what experience they wanted to build, they started getting really excited about it and literally reading everything about whatever they chose. Some of them chose to do a gardening simulator, others decided to work around a training session for farmers so that they can recover polluted soils, those kind of things. And they just got really into the subject because they were excited to create an experience around it. So the way the camps are, and this is how we're also thinking about doing pilots in the future, and this is just to give you a little bit of our experience doing this. So the first day was about researching the topic, doing a lot of team building, and then production planning. Yeah, we did teach the kids how to do production planning. That was kind of fun. So the first step is definitely going just online, asking them to go online, go find books or speak to people. They had a day to do that, and it was just letting them think about their subject, dive into it, and decide what kind of experience they wanted to build. Doing storyboards, also finding a team name, doing a logo for their team, doing a logo for their app. All of those things kind of participate into creating a cohesive team, and also, I don't know, as soon as there's a logo, they just felt so proud of what they were doing just because of the logo. That's kind of a little thing, but it's an important thing. So they should be creating logos for their apps. They just feel very proud when they see it on the phone and they see the icon. It's like the proudest moment of their life, right? So that was for me too when I did my first app. It was kind of cool to see it on the screen when I was at school. So these are a few of the sketches. So when they're thinking about their experience, they also had to think about what the user is going to do. So that's a bit of game design. But for example, here there's an experience that's going to be about tornadoes. So they were thinking of how that tornado is going to move around. These two are augmented reality apps, and that the user is supposed to go and catch fruits while the tornado is coming at them. So they kind of try to think about what the user would have to do. On the other sketch, it's also AR, and there's a little fisherman character, and you are supposed to try and grab the trash and not the fish. And basically here they were just thinking, okay, so I have a fish, and when I click on it, it has to go out of the bowl, and try to think about in that way, like the experience is going to be, okay, there's a logo, and then my character is going to say a little story. I have to write that text. Then there's a start button. Then there's this. The user has to click here and here. So that was kind of what they were doing the second half of the day and probably in the morning. And there were different types of apps. So the one on the left is like a branching narrative in AR about the war. So there's a character that's there and is very hungry, and if you don't give him food in 5 seconds, he kind of dies, and then you have a choice between becoming a journalist and stop the war, or joining the war. So this was kind of an interesting, they came out with an interesting story. And on the right-hand side, it was a whole story about how a kind of sanitation company was almost broke, so they couldn't create new pipes for their broken machines, so they took animals in the forest to kind of, I don't know, fix the pipes. And so your goal is to make sure that you're saving the animals and then, you know, saving kind of the water. This one's really interesting. Next. And these are some of the boards that we asked them to do by the end of day 1, morning of day 2, where they had to know like kind of everything, the naming, the storyboard. And we created this, you can go to the next slide, kind of canvas that we're using for these programs, where they have to give a title. They also need to think about who is the user in their story, what's the goal of the user in their story. Simple questions, but important ones when you only have 4 days to create something. And how does the user achieve his goal? And on the right side, it's asset lists. So it's just helping them think about exactly what they're going to need to produce, because when you have only a couple of days, kids sometimes some of them were thinking about doing a whole farming simulator or a very gigantic game, and we kind of helped them figure out this is what you are going to be able to achieve in a couple of days. So here they just needed to kind of list the assets, like I want a fish and I need a boat and all of that. And then present it, of course. Day 2 was modeling. So we asked them to do all of the assets themselves. We used a software called Google Blocks, and there's a short video where you can kind of see them. So these are the first interfaces we showed them. We didn't, because the workshop was using our Unity plugin, so we didn't open Unity at all before. We just wanted to show them kind of immersive interfaces first, and none of them had ever like 3D modeled anything, so they kind of had to figure it out on the fly. That was a lot of fun, and they picked it up quite quickly, and most of them created all of their assets. So Poly, do you all know the Google Poly library? So it's basically linked to a program called Google Blocks, which is free. It's great. You can model anything with it. We even use it for commercial apps sometimes. And then anything that you model in VR goes into that library, which is linked to your Google account. And then it's super easy to integrate it into anything else. So it's great for workshops or collaborative work, because everyone can just kind of model things, and then whichever team can pick up the models from others, combine them. It's a great tool. So here are some of the models that they were able to do in about like a day and a half. Just a series of them. I think they're pretty cool. And I'm not really good at 3D modeling. We can continue. This is the famous piping situation. This one is an island where your goal is the island is empty and there's no habitat, and you have to kind of bring back the habitat. So he designed his island as kind of a desert. And then through the experience, you're bringing back certain types of animals so that, you know, a certain type of plants grow back. I mean, they thought all of it out very clearly. This is a model for a farming simulator. So you own a land, and you have different types of farms. You have organic farms, you have industrial farms, and depending on what you do with your land, you end up with more or less money, or you pollute the other lands that you have. So the 2 kids working on this kind of also thought out all that mechanic. And these are the models that they built. That's the tornado. That looks like a marshmallow, but it is a tornado. And these are what the scenes kind of look like in the end. So pretty neat. So day 3 and 4 was programming. Programming was is obviously usually the hardest part, or what everyone's afraid about. But the kids were definitely excited of doing the programming side of their games. So we used for this workshop our Unity plugin, which is free to use, by the way, and it allows kind of anyone to do blocks programming in Unity, and You can add behaviors to 3D models. Like if I go close to this object, then this happens. If I grab this bottle, then I don't know, there's an audio that launches and a door that opens. And all those kind of things are kind of handled in a very easy way with checkboxes in Unity. And I think here there's a short video. I'm going to let you look through it. So here, think about they had to model the shovel. They had to say, oh, if I grab the shovel, then that audio starts. When I take the seed, or even this is a seed, you can grab it. When you place it here, then the tree grows. All those things. If you want to try some of those, we have them here. They're kind of fun to try. And there's this, like, if you put the pear close to the mouth, then this sound. So this is done. And they were like, he did 3 different scenarios, and in the first one you use pesticides to grow your tree, then you actually throw up. I didn't put that, but it's just right after the eating of the pear. And then you go through a second scenario where he teaches you how to actually garden without pesticides, and he helps you. If you put chives and onions near the tree, then the bugs go away, and then you can grow your tree without pesticides. And then there's another one that they didn't finish because they thought they could do 3, but they only did 2 with a carnivorous plant. So these are the types or the level of kind of interactivity and level of experiences that kids are able to build. And then day 5, most important part is playtesting. So we went outside, and then we had the educators and the teachers and also parents come out and enjoy what the apps were all about.
If you look around the island, you will find chemicals. These chemicals are harmful, so they can change fertility level in soils. Pick up a shovel, dig a hole, and plant the tree.
Yeah. So, and what we did also, we did a little bit of interviews with the kids at the end, and then kind of get their feedbacks on what they thought of the tools that we use. So one thing that they didn't like at all is Unity. So not Unity in itself because they had to code or do things on it, but it's just the interface itself, the flat interface, because we showed them VR tools first, and then we went to Unity, which is really like a flat screen. And then to move things around, you have to use the handles. They hated the handles. They were always messing up with the handles. And one of the kid who did the farming kind of like farming simulator came to me, and it was like, what is this program? I hate it. I can't move things around. It's horrible. Please help me. So kind of that. We had those kinds of reactions, but they loved the fact that they could create interactivity. Of course, that was super magical, but just the handling of that interface was really terrible. They were super excited to have a finished product at the end because there was everything in there, you know, like the logo at the splash screen, the start button, the experience, and then the end. Just that, having that even in a reduced mode was really, really great because then, and even if you show other people or if you show the teachers or the parents, they end up, instead of having a little prototype that doesn't work, they feel like they have a finished product, even if it's smaller because it's only a couple of days. And then another thing, well, our goal is that we're not supposed to be at those workshops. It's the educators who are, you know, who want to be able to do that by themselves. So we kind of discussed with them what are the resources they might need, how we can, you know, help them integrate that into their classes without having to have, you know, a background in software engineering or, you know, those technical stuff. So what we're building now is a platform called Zoe. And Zoe is basically our Unity plugin, but in virtual reality. And it's a visual programming tool for kids or for, you know, adults as well if they want to have fun, but it works for kids. And we're also integrating some features for specifically for the teachers. So a couple of things that we're doing. We have an app that works on the tablet right now, and it allows you to see all of the headsets when what's happening in all of the headsets. So you can go and swipe from headset to headset, and you can just see in real time what the kids are working on and how they're doing. We're also working on a marketplace so that there's a way to exchange pedagogy, you know, classes, ideas, templates, assets, those kind of things. And also working on ways to plug into what they already have for just evaluation of the process, right? And simple things like just being able to give the class a title, give the projects titles, maybe choosing assets that the kids are going to have access to. And even if they're creating some of the assets, there's also assets that are already there. So those kind of neat things that will make it a lot easier to create a class. And it's plug and play, and it works on the Oculus Quest. So there's no cables, nothing, and you don't even have to technically do anything. Just put everything on the same Wi-Fi and put the headset on, and it just works. So the goal is to make it as easy as possible, because just doing that VR camp with cabled headset was so complicated. Computers froze, computers bugged. We had to reboot them, and you know, these are complicated things for educators. They don't have time to do this. This is a little video of what it looks like. So this is we're still working on it, but there you can integrate your assets and move them around. And the most important part is you can visually program. So these are all the assets that kids created, and then you can add behaviors to them. You can say, oh, I can grab this. And now if this ball is in proximity with that robot, then this happens and that happens. And we're doing all of this in virtual reality is a lot of fun. And it's also much easier to do, and then you can output that and share that. And these are some of the kind of behaviors that we have, and it's easy to code more of them, so we can add a lot of different behaviors in the app, you know, as we go forward. Yeah, I think that's kind of it for me. I think I told you a little bit of like an overview of what we've been doing. We are going to be around the show floor. We have the prototype of Zoe on the Quest with the app as well. So if you are interested to check it out or just have fun with the apps the kids created, we'll be around. And if you have any questions, I don't know if we have time.